So this video is not going to be for everyone, and I'm so aware of that. But I am a massive, massive horror fan. My favourite genre is horror, thrillers, psychological thrillers, anything like that I absolutely love. And so when Netflix released The Haunting of Hill House, I always get the name wrong. I've always called it The Haunted House on the Hill or like The Hill Haunting or something. I always get the name wrong, it's so annoying, so I'm sorry if I do that in this at some point. But when I saw that Netflix had released The Haunting of Hill House, I kind of instantly knew that I would love it because A, it's Netflix and Netflix know what they're doing when it comes to like storylines and stuff, and B, it was horror and a thriller, so I am all about that life. So I was watching episode 3, and by the way, in this video there is going to be spoilers. They're probably not going to be massive ones, but they will probably give away a little bit of the story if you haven't seen it. Obviously if you're over the age of whatever it's rated, which I think is a 15, then I really recommend you watch it. And obviously if you like horror. If you don't like horror, then maybe don't watch it because it is actually really scary. I was scared a lot throughout it, but I like feeling like that. So I think I just started watching like episode 3 and I started to notice things in the background. Once I saw that, I kept looking in the background for other things, and they just, when I started doing that, they were just everywhere. And these things are like hidden ghosts and kind of like Easter eggs, I guess, or like clues, or just things that obviously they've put in on purpose but that not everyone would necessarily notice at first. And I love that they've done that. I think it's really, really cool. So I wanted to make a video of all the ones that I noticed, because I have seen a few videos where they talk about a few hidden ghosts and stuff, like Netflix have released a few of their own, some people have done videos on it, but I've noticed quite a lot more than what I've seen on YouTube, and I wanted to share with you all the ones that I've seen. So in the very first episode, which is Stephen's episode, when he is kind of reading his book out loud and talking about Hill House, and it has like the different scenes of the house. In the third or fourth one, I think, there is a quite clear face in between the stair banisters. So I think that's the first ghost you see in the whole series, and it's really near the beginning, so you can't really miss it. At about 34 minutes and 50 seconds, he runs down the stairs with his dad, and there are 2 ghosts in the doorway, and I'll circle everything so you can see it really clearly, but there's definitely 2 figures in the doorway there. In the same episode, and this was quite an interesting one because it's not necessarily that obvious, when Stephen sets up his kind of Ghostbuster kit thing, which detects like the heat and stuff, when he feels the drips on his head, there's a big red kind of heat mark on the ceiling, and then which you can see in the screen. Then when he gets up on the bed to inspect the ceiling, the heat mark kind of goes, and you see it go in the screen as well, which I thought was quite interesting. So there probably was a ghost there after all. That was at about 39 minutes or so. Then in the same episode, at about 50 minutes 50 seconds, when Mrs. Dudley is talking to Stephen in the kitchen about knowing the proverbs and stuff, and his mum walks in, there's a really clear face behind her in the doorway. There's kind of no doubt that that is definitely a hidden ghost. So in episode 2, which is Shirley's episode, there was only 2 kind of notable ghosts that I saw, well I think that I saw. And it's kind of interesting because there wasn't really many things in Shirley's episode that were like surrounding her, and the only 2 that were visible were when Liv was there. So I don't really know if there's a correlation between whoever has the most ghosts in their episode is probably like the most haunted, as we know that Liv is probably the most haunted out of all of them. But anyway, when Shirley walks in to talk to her mum, there looks like there's a figure watching in the background in the garden. And if you carry on watching that scene, behind Liv there's a figure next to the chandelier on the left. And I wasn't sure if this was a ghost or not, but then what I saw in the next scene definitely confirmed it. So when it cuts back to Shirley and then it cuts back to Liv again, the ghost moves from one side of the chandelier to the other, so you kind of know then that it is a ghost. This is all happening at about 4 minutes 20 in the episode around. And that's all I could find in that episode. I don't know if there's more that I've missed, but those were the only ones that I could find, and that's all in the space of a couple of seconds, like 30 seconds or so. The next episode, which is episode 3, has quite a few more ghosts in the background. This was actually my favourite episode because I think Theo is my favourite character, and I just really liked this episode in general. I thought it was really cool, and there are some really obvious hidden ghosts in this one. The first one happens at around 10 minutes when Theo walks into the kitchen with an apple and starts talking to Luke, but when she walks in there's a really obvious face looking at her through the panel in the door, which is really creepy. This next one in the same episode, which happens at about 16 minutes or so, is the first ghost that I kind of noticed and thought, oh my god, there's loads of hidden ghosts in this show, because after that one I started noticing loads. because this one was just so obvious to me. So when Theo and Luke go through the corridor after talking to Mrs. Dudley, there's a really obvious woman figure standing right at the bottom of the stairs, and you know it's a ghost because you can see like her leg and stuff. So yeah, that was like the most obvious one for me. The next one in this episode happens at around 18.5 minutes, and this one isn't as obvious. It's when Theo gives Luke a ride in the down later. If you look to the right in like the dark room next to it by the table, there's like a figure of a girl with really long blonde hair, and she kind of reappears quite a lot throughout the other episodes, so like the same ghost. But that was the first time that I saw her. This next one I didn't actually notice myself, and I only realised it was there when I watched someone else's video on YouTube about this. This happens at about 28 minutes and 40 seconds, and when Theo moves the big, I don't even know what she moves, but she moves something out of the way to get to the trapdoor in the kitchen, and there's a figure standing straight next to the camera on the left, and I would never have thought it was a ghost, but I did see the hand like kind of just down, and it's really obviously a hand. So that's even creepier because it's just so close to the camera. And then a couple of moments after that, when Theo opens the ladder, there is a face looking up at her through the steps, which I thought was really, really creepy. That was one of the creepiest ones for me. This next one happens at around 39 minutes, 40 seconds, and it's when Theo is talking to Liv, and then she has that weird vision of Liv with her head kind of kicked in, shall we say. And if you look behind Liv, as soon as Theo has seen that, there is a figure standing behind her there. And that's the same blonde girl, so she obviously likes to be a bit of a onlooker when there's scary things happening in the house around her. This next one is in the next episode, which is episode 4, and it happens around the 9-minute mark, and it's when Liv and Hugh are kind of talking about her deja vu experience, and what looks like the same blonde girl is in the background in front of the window. And in the same episode at about 13.5 minutes, there is a really creepy face in the pantry window when Nellie and Luke are playing with the weird telephone pipe thing. And what makes it even creepier is the fact that it's got its hand pressed against the glass, like kind of peering at them, which is really, really weird. And in the same episode again, this is about 14 minutes 40, it's when Luke has just seen that creepy old woman in the telephone thing, and he runs downstairs to tell Nellie, and there's 2 figures watching him in the doorway. They do really like to hang around that doorway. That's like their hangout spot, I think. This next one, which is in episode 5, which is Nellie's episode, there's quite a few in this episode for obvious reasons. If my theory is correct, the more ghosts in the episode, the more haunted you are. So this one was about 3 minutes in, and I wasn't sure if this was definitely one, but I thought I'd include it anyway because I did still notice it. So after Nellie sees the bent neck lady and she goes and cries to her mum and dad, when the camera faces Liv, you can see behind her some kind of facial figures maybe. I put these in because they're the same kind of colourings as all the other ghosts, so I thought they could easily be ghosts. Now that I think about it, a lot of these ghosts are behind Liv, and if you've seen the show, we know what happens to Liv, so that really doesn't surprise me that much, but I think it's interesting to note still. The next one, which is in the same episode, episode 5, this one happens at about 3.5 minutes, and it's when Hugh leaves Nellie and Liv on the couch to sleep for the night. When he leaves, he kind of opens up the view of the doorway, and there's the blonde girl standing there again. She loves them. Same episode, this is 21 minutes and 50 seconds in. This is another one that I noticed straight away, and it was one that really creeped me out as well. So when Liv thinks that Nell has written her name on the wall, if you look under the table, there's these creepy hands like poking out. So weird and scary. And then a couple of moments later, when Theo puts her hand on the wall so that she can kind of see if Nell has done it or not, if you look behind Nell, when the camera pans to her, there's what looks like the figure of like a little boy in the background. I'm not sure about that one, that might not be one, it might just be a coincidence, but I feel like there's not really many coincidences in this show, so yeah, I put this one in as well, but I'm not sure about it. On to the next episode, which is episode 6. This happens at about 41 minutes in, and actually this is one of the ones that's not a ghost, and I don't know how I noticed this. Like, I've just been on the lookout for anything since I saw the first couple of ghosts, so my mind has been really focused on what's in the background. So when Liv is talking to Hugh in the hallway while the storm's happening, the statue is facing straight on, like it's looking straight on. When then Liv goes into one of the bedrooms and looks for Nellie and can't find her, when she walks back out of the bedroom, the statue is facing her and looking at her in a completely different direction. But that one I had to rewind because I wasn't sure. I was like, did that statue move? I feel like it did. And then I rewinded it and it definitely did. So that is something that's not necessarily a ghost, but still noteworthy and is obviously done on purpose. That was the only thing I noticed in that episode. There wasn't actually any ghosts. Well, there probably were, but they were more obvious. So in the next episode, which is episode 7, which is Hugh's episode, Dad's episode, the next one happens at about 38.5 minutes, and it's when Hugh is trying to get into the red room with the crowbar, and there's a face watching him from the left side of the door, which is another one that is definitely a ghost. Like, it's a very clear face in that door. The next one happens at about 50 minutes and 10 seconds, and this is probably one of the most obvious ones that I saw. It's the blonde girl. She's back, she loves it. So she's there watching Hugh when he kind of finds the body behind the wall in the basement. And then a couple of moments later, when the police arrive to check the body out, she is also there behind the door, and her hand is really weirdly like on the door frame, like creeping in. She's a bit of a freak, that blonde girl. In the next episode, which is episode 9, so Liv's episode, at about 1.5 minutes in, Hugh picks up Luke to take him to bed, and there's just a really obvious Frankenstein looking guy in the doorway watching everything happen. The next one in episode 9 is probably the one that scared me the most. Like, when I saw this, I was like, oh my god, turn it off. This happens at about 8.5 minutes, and it's when Liv is having a headache and she walks into the kitchen and Shirley and Luke are arguing. There is just the weirdest looking face looking straight at Shirley, and it's really scary, and the woman is just really clear, and there's like no mistake that that is a ghost. In the same episode, this happens at about 36 minutes when Liv leaves the family to go to her sister's house for a week. In the background by the door, kind of also saying goodbye weirdly, is the Frankenstein man. Obviously just wanted to say goodbye as well before she goes off on her little holiday thing, which is really nice of him. So in the same episode, and again this matches my theory of the more haunted you are, the more ghosts you have in your episode, and Liv has a lot of ghosts in her episode. This happens at about 39 minutes 40 seconds, and this happens when Shirley comes downstairs to get a snack and she sees her mum in the kitchen, but on her way there's a figure in the doorway watching her. So those are all the hidden ghosts that I spotted. I really like that they've done that, because it's kind of like a true horror in that way, where there's things just in the background that you're not expecting. I love Easter eggs and clues and hidden meanings and stuff, so I really loved that about the series. There were some kind of unanswered questions that I had after the show, which I had to research to kind of get my answer. I just wanted to share those with you as well, and this is going to contain big spoilers, so maybe turn off now if you don't want to hear those. But when Arthur died, so when Nellie's husband died, I got really confused because I did think the bent neck lady killed him at first, before I knew it was Nellie. And then obviously when I found out that it was Nellie in the room and not the bent neck lady, because she thought the bent neck lady had killed Arthur, I was like, well, who killed Arthur then, or how did he die? But that was one of the questions I had, and I've googled it, and apparently it is just an aneurysm that he had, which is just, yeah, bad luck, I guess. Another question I had is when Nellie sees the bent neck lady in the Storms episode, when Nellie is dying and she goes through all the floors when she's like being hung. She doesn't go to that moment in the Storms, so I don't know what Nellie saw when she was younger there, whether it was actually herself or whether it was like another ghost, or I don't know, but that didn't really make sense to me. Like, why didn't Nellie see that when she was going through the different floors, or whatever you want to call it? I still don't really have an answer for that, but yeah, I don't know about that one. I also don't get why Theo, when she touched Nell, why she didn't tell everyone that it wasn't a suicide and that it was actually Liv that killed her. I don't know, yeah, I feel like it was just a bit like she kind of should have known that's how she died, and don't know why she wouldn't tell the others. Another thing about Theo, when the dad touches her on the last night and she sees everything, because she's touched her dad and her dad's seen everything, why didn't she tell anyone in the future? If Theo knew what was going to happen, why didn't she tell everyone? She could have avoided this whole thing. Also, who put the buttons on Nell's eyes? Enough said. I don't think it could have been Olivia, because she's kind of locked into Hill House and she can't really leave, so that confused me. Also, I don't really understand the stories of the ghosts. There's obviously William, the tall guy with the hat, and Poppy, the mean one who killed Olivia, and a few others, like the boy in the wheelchair, and they don't really talk about the kid ghosts that much. I would just like to know a bit more about their story. Yeah, that's basically the gist of what I wanted to share in this video. I really enjoyed the series, and most of all just wanted to like talk about it with someone, and because none of my friends really like horror, I wanted to talk about it with you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the series, if there's any unanswered questions you have, or if there's any hidden ghosts that I've missed or anything else that I've missed. I would love to know. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a like if you did and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!